Hello everyone, welcome to our weekly chat with Susanne. The topic for this week is to ask or not to ask questions. Creating an environment where we are free to ask questions is not something that is always very easy to create. How do we know if it's okay to ask questions? And at the same time, we have to all admit, in a ballet class, do we have time for every single question? Not necessarily. We need to have a balance between questions that actually help everyone move forward and the question that could be asked in a different environment. So today we're going to talk about all of this with Susanne. I'm just waiting for her to join.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Good morning, good evening, good night. That's the beauty of Instagram. Everybody's everywhere.
Everybody's everywhere.
Hello, Paula. Lots of new people. I love this.
I love it too. Okay. What are we talking about? Are we talking about
asking questions?
That's right. We're asking.
Oh, were you asking me a question?
I haven't talked much yet. Okay,
you're a bit close to the camera for me, because I know you don't
right.
see the same thing I see.
I can't see this. Okay, is this better?
This is perfect.
Okay, and you can hear me too?
I can hear you very well.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about why asking questions is such an important thing, and what advice can we give everybody that's on here today and watching this video for, let's say you're in an environment that is really not living in that kind of state of mind and actually prevents you from asking questions, and how can you still flex that muscle, and where else can you go to ask those questions? So
you could even go further and be the person that managed to make that change in the environment.
Yes.
I think it's really awesome when that happens.
We'll make that change, all of us together. How about that? What we're talking about. Do you remember our conversation that we had on the podcast, the interview?
And I do remember you asking me one particular question.
Oh, let's hear it. Which one?
When I was talking about a very famous dancer, which was quite obvious from the way I was talking about him that he was a world-renowned dancer, and you didn't know who it was, or maybe you misunderstood the name regardless. And I remember you were a bit uncomfortable to ask who that person was.
Yes.
And so you actually also made me think twice, because I was like, wait a second, even if he is world famous, she deserves the right not to know him.
Thank you for that. But that's the point. I am still uncomfortable asking questions. And I have learned over the past, I would say 2 years, that the way and the amount and your comfortability with asking questions is actually a reflection of where you are in your own self-esteem. It determines where your life could be. And it is just imperative to ask questions. So what I wanted to say was that when I asked you the question around questions, yes, you came up with this beautiful answer. You grew up in this wide open relationship with your parents and your teachers, that asking questions and being curious was always something that was encouraged, where I didn't, right? And the reason why we're talking about this is that we're seeing a lot, and I'm really specifically using that word, that we're seeing it a lot in the dance and ballet space, that asking questions is not allowed. And I believe that becoming a dancer and being a dancer is all about evolving,
curiosity,
becoming, right? And in order to do that, you have to ask questions, and you need to be encouraged to ask questions, and you need to feel safe to ask questions. So can you just go and for yourself, what does it mean for you, and what is the importance for you to asking questions? Because it is such a simple statement, but yet it has such a big impact into our life. Right?
Definitely. Before I answer this question, I want to say one thing, is if that makes the ballet world feel better, they're not the only one. As you know, I have a very diverse background, And everywhere I worked, asking question is definitely not something people do very easily, very naturally. I think a lot of the cultures we all grew up in, we had schools that were emphasizing knowledge. So most of us grew up in an environment where knowing the answer is more important than the quest to the answer. And which is why I was talking in the interview with you about my parents, because being teachers, for them, curiosity, asking questions, looking for the answer, trying to find the answer is more important than knowing it. And
the journey, right? It's not about
yes,
but about the journey. Okay.
And I think there probably be a generational change because millennials grew up with Google. Google has the answer to everything. So it tends to be more about how do you find the answer rather than the answer itself, because it's out there. Asking questions is important because you can't know everything. So if you can't know everything, how are you going to find out? And you can try to find the answers all by yourself, but you know what? It's going to take a long time. So for me, this is the first reason why it's so important to ask questions, because otherwise you're closing the door to so much knowledge and experiences and different point of views, which helps you grow and get better. And as an artist, this is what you leave on. You need that diversity of point of view and understanding so that you can create something that is interesting and that relate to your wider audience, because what I like is not what you like. What moves me is not what moves you. So if I want to create like if I'm a choreographer and I want to create something, I need to create something for more than one person. So right. I need to have that understanding of all those different point of views.
So let's talk about it's about the journey, not about the result, because talking about the industry, our industry, it is all about the performance. It is all about the results and not about the journey. So where can we, in our thinking even, start making a difference that the journey, the process is actually where true fulfillment can be found? You know, it comes back to finding perfection, all of these stigmas that are so loudly talked about that prevent us from asking questions. And actually asking questions is what's actually holding us back to become better. And so when we are in an environment, you and I talked about this last week, we had a few people actually reaching out and asking the question, what do I do?
Yeah.
I find that a challenging question, because
it is. That's what I've been thinking.
Because we can't just go in and say, hey, wrong, and out with you. That's not how this is going to work, right? So I would say the first thing that would be a good switch in everybody's thinking perspective is that you are not less than or unworthy or incapable because you have questions. Having questions is a good thing. You're not stupid. You can ask. You should always ask everybody.
It is actually a sign of intelligence, if you ask me.
Exactly. So we're actually, if somebody tells you that asking questions is not a great thing, or you're not knowledgeable enough, that's wrong. That I would really say that's wrong. Maybe it's right for them, but that's not something that you have to take on. So start with changing your own perception around asking questions. That's where I would start.
Definitely.
Would you agree? Okay, awesome.
Yes, I was actually reflecting on some editing I did this week on video. That was a coaching session between principal dancer and a soloist, learning on your role, and I noticed the difference between the interaction between different dancers. And one particular dancer always managed to have the best coaching session ever, and I was really studying her and to understand how she creates that. And straight from the beginning, she's in charge. She's asking questions. She's asking a lot of questions. She's giving a lot of feedback to the coach, who's not a teacher anymore. It becomes really a coach. Like, I am here to guide you. And that's what I was thinking when you were talking. I was thinking about that experience where I noticed this particular dancer is not afraid of saying, I don't understand what you meant. Can you repeat? I don't feel it in my body. I feel this. Is that the same thing? All of this with smile and care, so that the coach doesn't get annoyed by all those questions. So there is also a way of communicating to allow the other person on the other end to feel that they're not wasting their time answering your question. But it was really interesting, the difference between the dancers who were actually not communicating verbally. I'm not saying they were not communicating, but verbally it was not much, which is what we're used to. I guess
Right.
you and I were used to this kind of relationship, especially in rehearsal. But the results to me were so different and interesting. Even the coach seemed way happier, actually, of having all these interactions.
Would you, yeah, because you're not speaking against
a wall,
right? And you actually get it. It's a conversation. It comes from both sides.
Sometimes it made her think. Like, I remember she was like, really? You feel that? And then she was like, okay, I see what you mean. So it was profound.
Right. And that is the switch of mentality, that when we're working together, we're not working against each other. It is not a power struggle, me telling you what to do.
Yes.
It is a relationship that is building by saying, hey, this doesn't feel right. It comes from a place of love and wanting to know more versus blaming somebody else for your own inabilities. That's where, when we're reframing our state around asking questions and possibility around questions, it is important that for every single one of us to actually really go deep and be aware of that state that we're in, that asking questions comes from a place of love. It is not to undermine somebody. It is not to point somebody else's mistakes out. No, it is to learn more and to all get perhaps better. Like, if you want to put it as a big ball there. So, and
what you're saying is extremely important, because if you use that in the way you ask your questions, people will understand it. So I remember when I was training to be a coach, they told us, don't hesitate to say, I'm curious, can you tell me more? We are not comfortable with this I'm curious sentence. Like, I can tell you, I had to practice to really feel comfortable with, I'm curious, can you tell me more? It feels so unnatural at first. But when you see the result on the other side, you understand why it's important. Why it's important to say, I'm sorry, maybe I'm wasting your time, but I did not understand. Would you mind repeating?
Yeah, or even not even saying I'm sorry, because you don't have to apologize for having a question, right? It's like,
you're right. Thank you for that.
I'm the same way. Like, I 100% agree and understand this, but I am sorry, we're already putting ourselves into a lesser position, or we're undermining
totally. Yeah.
Right. So when we're saying, when we're not understanding, to phrase it, it's like, this doesn't feel right yet. I don't feel I have yet understood it. Would you be able to put it in a different context or look at it from a different perspective? Now that takes a lot of awareness on your part, right? Like on oneself's part.
And that's everything we talk. It always starts with yourself.
Yeah. Yes. Everything starts with yourself.
Yes.
It's also in a position of power, your own power, unleashing your own power and your self-esteem, and perhaps also your knowledge. So how can we put a bow on it, this conversation today? If you guys have any questions, please put that in the chat, and we're more than happy to answer those.
I think it starts by everyone making that little first step towards asking a simple question, and then slowly changing the environment where it is safe to ask questions. That said, as I said during the introduction, I think it's important to bear in mind when it is the right time to also ask a question, because you can't go in a class and ask hundreds and hundreds of questions throughout the class. You need to be able to gauge the environment. But it doesn't mean not asking questions at all. It just means when. So what I mean by that is sometimes it's a good thing to wait until the end of the rehearsal or wait until the end of the class for certain things. I think it's important also to be aware of your environment and the current time. Is that the right time to ask this specific question? As you mentioned, make a lot of work on yourself to realize that when you're asking questions, you're actually developing yourself. So you're not coming from a place where you're stupid because you don't know. You actually have this amazing opportunity to get to know the answer. And if we practice, no, wait, I know the key point is how do you reply to people asking you questions? That's what I forgot I wanted to say earlier, and that's why I remembered that conversation we had about this famous dancer. The way you reply to others, to their questions, will make them feel safe. And then you start creating that environment, and you start creating that snowball effect, that it is okay to ask questions. Because when people ask you questions, you reply in a very simple manner with care.
Jason just asked a question, how to develop curiosity that leads to the habit of asking questions. Would love to know what you think. That is such a great question, Jason. By the way, Jason interviewed me on his podcast, and his questions are very high level. He has very great questions all the time. I just wanted to point this out.
So how to
develop curiosity that leads to the habit of asking questions.
Attentive listening. So listening attentively to what the other person is saying. And how do you flex this muscle? You ask questions that challenge the assumptions that you have made on the understanding that you had of this question. So you basically ask questions back on the comment. So how to develop curiosity that leads to the habit of asking questions. So I would be tempted to ask Jason by how does he define curiosity here?
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, is curiosity actually something that can be developed? Because some are more curious than others. It perhaps is a habit, so it can be developed. I would say to develop curiosity is to just be a little bit more involved into your life and be not here. Whatever you experience on a daily basis, this is how I started. I started to question everything that I heard, not all at once, but I started with questioning, hey, do I really have to do this? Do I really have to feel this way? Do I really have to react this way? And with that, so many other doors opening. And this is how I started to become more curious around, well, what if? Asking the question, what if? Maybe that's what it is.
So what kind of doors did that open?
What doors did that open? Oh my God. I actually found myself. I had no idea who I was. That's right, Nayar. Questions really equals growing. That's so true. So it really opened for me personally doors to see more opportunities, to look at who I was and who I wanted to become from a completely different perspective. Oh, I also figured out, I don't have to follow all of these pathways that have been put in front of me or that I assumed I have to follow. I can make my own choices. And that only became clear to me by asking the question, what if?
What is the latest what if question you ask yourself?
Oh, wow. Okay. So, two, um, what if I can actually, oh man, that goes so deep. Dude, I'm sorry, y'all, but that is really, really, what if,
I'm trying to answer Jason's question.
man, I can't. That's right. Curiosity equals growth mindset, noticing and embracing the nuances. Well, then a growth mindset starts with asking the question, what if, what would it?
Asking questions and thinking that, so just the way I did, I just let you answer and then I ask another question to go deeper into what you were talking about. And as you notice, like suddenly went really, really deep because I went further from the just superficial conversation. This is how, I mean, for me, because
It is
you ask
hard.
about personal perspective on it, that's how you develop your curiosity. Just realizing that you actually don't know the answer. A lot of time we don't ask questions because we think we already know what this person is thinking, wondering. You know, how many times do a friend come to you and say, what would you do if you were in my position? It took me years to realize, do not answer this question. Do not. I am not in your position. I don't know what's important for you. I don't know what you value, so I cannot answer that question. But so what I do is I ask a lot of questions. What's important for you? Why are you hesitating? What would you like? What would you have to lose? What do you have to gain? And whenever they use a word that I think I understand, like being professional, being on time, I actually ask, what do you mean by that?
So
Then
going deeper, right?
going deeper in the meaning of what the other person is saying.
And I want to bring that up. I feel that we as in the industry, because this is what we're talking about, we're wanting to help everybody that's dancing outside of it, has been in it, wants to be in it, that the industry can come to conclusions very quickly.
Yes.
And there is not much room for asking questions or for the curiosity. And with that, the growth mindset, the actual evolution of the art form itself has been pushed down. So in order, and I'm scurrying around your question so badly, like I'm being very transparent here. I want to make this come to an end right now. So I asked myself the question, what if I wouldn't be scared anymore?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I would do if I would know that it would succeed? That is really, really, really scurrying in my head. And how can I release? Like my word for this year is freedom. So I am releasing everything that's keeping me in that old mindset, in that old frame of not being enough and not being capable, in that mindset of, oh, failure is inevident, and with failure comes abandonment, basically. So there, blah. There you go, everybody.
You reminded me of a very recent event. A ballet master was a little bit upset because the dancers were always on their phone when you arrived in the studio, sometime during the class. And it was a sign of lack of respect for him. During the conversation, I get to know that he actually told them it's disrespectful. And they replied, no, we're not disrespecting you. Like, we have all the respect that we wanna show you. It's us being on our phone does not equal disrespecting you. And that reminded me of what I talked about before, which is, what does respecting me means to you? And I think in the ballet world, to avoid getting into conclusion and being labeled unprofessional, disrespectful, etc., one thing that each individual can do to start changing that is to actually ask questions at the beginning of the season. Maybe, for example, you get to know a new teacher. Maybe they'll be set off by that type of question, but you can ask them, how do you want me to behave in your class?
What are your expectations, right?
What are your expectations? What do you expect from me so that I make sure I actually meet your expectations? We don't really do that. And that's one way of changing the environment, starting from ourselves, without expecting the ballet masters to change first.
Right. Because everything starts with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So find the courage to ask the question to what the expectations are, and then see if that does it fit who you are and who you want to become or not. And reading is a form of asking questions.
Yes.
So listen carefully. We listen and read to learn and discover. That's why we ask.
Khaled is a great reader.
Yes. Okay. Let's tie a bow on this, what we wanted to do 10 minutes ago. Thank you guys for being here and for participating. Really love your comments, your questions. Asking questions is such a big part of being a human being, being a learner, and being a dancer also means being human and being a learner. So asking questions is essential for your growth.
Definitely. It comes from a place of love.
Yes.
Curiosity.
Yes, a place of love, and it always should come from a place of love, right?
Thank you so much for this beautiful chat. I really enjoyed them. Makes me think so much.
I have podcast content now for, I don't know, the next years. It's awesome. So are we coming tomorrow? We are back tomorrow.
Can you repeat that? It was cutting off. Sorry.
Oh, we are coming back tomorrow, right?
Of course we are. What's the topic tomorrow? I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, business.
So we will tell you on our stories.
Why business mindset is so important to have. Part two. Part two.
Definitely.
And I think
the Point to Rise account.
Yes. All right, guys. Thank you. Good to see you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining.